On a quiet afternoon, a young boy was having fun at the park until a racist cop grabbed him, choked him, and threw him against a tree, accusing him of something he didn't do. The officer had no idea that this child's mother was one of the most powerful judges in the city. Now, she's on a mission for justice. Will she bring this officer to his knees, or will the system once again protect one of its own? Stay tuned to find out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Blast off. The late afternoon sun cast a warm golden glow over Oak Ridge Park, a lively spot in Atlanta, Georgia. The soft rustling of leaves mixed with the laughter of children and the rhythmic clatter of skateboard wheels against the pavement. Families sat on benches, joggers moved steadily along the trails, and friends played pickup basketball on the nearby court. It was a peaceful, ordinary day, at least for most. Among the crowd, 12-year-old Tyler Harris weaved through the paths on his skateboard, his heart racing with excitement. He loved the feeling of the wheels gliding effortlessly beneath him, the wind brushing against his face. This was his escape, his sanctuary, where nothing else mattered except perfecting his latest tricks. Just hours earlier, Tyler had eagerly asked his mother for permission to come to the park. "Mom, can I go skate for a bit?" he had asked, already clutching his board. His mother, Judge Olivia Harris, glanced up from her desk, her sharp eyes momentarily softening. "You know the rules, Tyler. Stay where there are people, and be home before dark." "I will. I promise," Tyler beamed, sprinting out the door before she could change her mind. As the door clicked shut, Olivia sighed. She trusted her son, but she didn't trust the world. She had spent years in the courtroom, witnessing firsthand how the justice system failed boys like Tyler. Black, young, and unfairly judged. No crime needed, just their existence in the wrong place at the wrong time. But this was just an afternoon at the park. What could go wrong? At Oak Ridge, Tyler warmed up with a few simple ollies, then launched into a kickflip, his sneakers barely skimming the board as it spun beneath him. "Whoa, that was sick," called out a boy watching nearby. "Thanks, man." Tyler grinned, wiping the sweat from his brow. He felt at ease, surrounded by strangers who only saw him as a fellow kid having fun. Not a threat, not a suspect. This was how it should be. But what Tyler didn't know was that just a few yards away, a pair of watchful eyes had already locked onto him. A presence that would soon turn his safe haven into a nightmare. Tyler kicked off the ground, gaining speed as he rolled across the smooth pavement of Oak Ridge Park. He felt free, weightless, as if the world had paused just for him. The air was cool against his skin, and the familiar sound of his skateboard's wheels humming against the concrete was all he needed. But in a matter of moments, everything would change. As Tyler was midair, attempting a heel flip, his board landed closer than expected, to a park bench where an older white woman sat reading a book. The skateboard rolled forward and stopped just inches from her feet. Startled, she gasped and clutched her purse. "Oh my God! Watch where you're going," she shrieked. Tyler quickly jogged over, breathless. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. I didn't mean to—" She didn't let him finish. "Where are your parents?" she demanded, narrowing her eyes. Tyler blinked, confused by the hostility. I came by myself," he said honestly, reaching down for his board. The woman let out a scoff, shaking her head. "Unbelievable. These kids think they can do whatever they want." Tyler felt his stomach tighten. He wasn't sure what he had done wrong, but he could feel the shift in the air. He could feel the weight of being watched, being judged. That's when he heard the firm voice from behind him. "Hey, you!" Tyler turned, only to see Officer Scott Reynolds, a broad-shouldered cop in uniform, making his way toward him. His face was stiff, unreadable. "You got a problem here, ma'am?" Reynolds asked, tilting his head toward the woman. "Yes. This kid nearly crashed into me with his skateboard. He's reckless, and I don't think he even lives around here," she huffed, crossing her arms. Tyler's pulse quickened. "I said I was sorry," he murmured. Reynolds eyed the boy, then took a slow step forward. "What's your name, kid?" "Tyler," he answered hesitantly. "You got ID on you?" Tyler frowned. "No, sir. I'm just at the park." The officer clicked his tongue, as if already deciding the boy was guilty of something. "You from around here?" "Yes, sir," Tyler said, his voice quieter now. "I live like 5 minutes away." Reynolds gave a slow, unimpressed nod, then reached for his radio. "HQ, I've got a potential trespasser at Oak Ridge Park. Possible disturbance." Tyler's eyes widened. "Wait, what? I didn't do anything?" "You're getting an attitude with me now," Reynolds shot back. Tyler shook his head quickly. "No, sir, I swear I was just—" "Enough," Reynolds snapped. "Turn around, hands where I can see 'em." Tyler froze. Turn around? Like a criminal? A few people nearby had started to notice. A couple with their toddler paused mid-step, so whispering to each other. A young man with headphones slid his phone out, ready to record. "I didn't do anything," Tyler insisted, his voice shaking. He could feel his body tensing, his heart pounding so loud it echoed in his ears. Reynolds grabbed Tyler by the collar, yanking him forward. "Hey!" Tyler gasped, stumbling. "You running your mouth too much, boy," Reynolds growled, shoving him back against a tree. The rough bark scraped against Tyler's arms as he struggled to breathe. Gasps rippled through the park. "Yo, what the hell?" someone shouted. "He's just a kid," a woman yelled, pulling out her phone. But Reynolds didn't care. He pressed his knee into Tyler's stomach, making the boy let out a choked gasp. "You all think you can run around doing whatever you want, don't you?" the officer muttered. "You act like this is your damn playground." Tears burned at Tyler's eyes, but he gritted his teeth, refusing to cry. I wasn't doing anything," he croaked out. "Yeah, that's what they all say," Reynolds sneered. A few feet away, Miles Carter, a man in a baseball cap, was recording everything. His hands trembled with anger as he whispered, "They're not gonna get away with this." "Let him go," another voice demanded. Finally, Reynolds yanked Tyler up, grabbing his skateboard and tossing it aside. "You think you can do whatever you want?" he spat. "Not in my park. Now get out of here before I take you in." Tyler staggered, feeling his legs wobble beneath him. The world was spinning. His throat burned from where Reynolds had grabbed him. "Go on," Reynolds barked. Tyler picked up his skateboard with shaking hands and stumbled away. He didn't know where to go. He didn't know how to feel. All he knew was that he had never been more afraid in his life. But what Reynolds didn't realize was that his actions were already being shared online, and Tyler's mother was about to find out. Tyler's legs felt like they were moving on their own as he stumbled away from the park, gripping his skateboard so tightly that his knuckles turned white. His heart pounded in his chest, and his throat burned where Officer Reynolds had grabbed him. He wanted to scream, to cry, but he didn't. He just kept walking, trying to make sense of what had just happened. When he finally reached his house, he hesitated at the front door. He didn't want his mom to see him like this, shaken, humiliated, afraid. But there was no hiding it. Tears had already stained his cheeks. Taking a deep breath, he pushed the door open. The sound of the door clicking shut made Judge Olivia Harris look up from her paperwork. "Tyler, you're home," she began. But the words died in her throat as soon as she saw him. Her son stood there trembling, his shirt wrinkled, his face pale. Faint bruises were already forming along his neck. "Baby, what happened?" Olivia's voice dropped to a whisper as she rushed toward him, crouching down to meet his eyes. Tyler tried to speak, but the lump in his throat was too big. His breath came out shaky. "Masanti, I didn't do anything, Mama." He finally choked out. Olivia's stomach twisted. "Who did this to you?" Tyler's lips quivered. "A cop. He thought I was doing something bad, but I wasn't. I was just skating, Mama. He grabbed me and—" His voice cracked. I couldn't breathe. A storm brewed behind Olivia's eyes. "What did he look like?" Tyler swallowed hard. "Big. White. He had a badge. He called someone on the radio. Said I might be a trespasser. But Mama, I was just there playing. I swear I didn't do anything wrong." "I know, baby," Olivia said, pulling him into her arms, her jaw tightening with fury. She stroked his curls, but her mind was already racing. Then her phone buzzed. She reached for it, still holding Tyler close. A message from an unknown number. "You need to see this." Attached was a video. Her fingers trembled as she pressed play. The moment the footage started rolling, her blood ran cold. It was all there. Her son, barely more than a child, pinned against a tree. The officer, Reynolds, yanking him by the collar, pressing his knee into his stomach. The way Tyler gasped, struggling for air. The way he looked so helpless. Her breath hitched. Her baby. A deep, simmering rage spread through Olivia's chest. She stood up abruptly, anger radiating from every inch of her body. "What's his name?" she asked, her voice controlled, but lethal. Tyler wiped his eyes. "Reynolds. Officer Reynolds." Olivia nodded once. "Go upstairs, baby. Wash up. I need to make a few calls." Tyler hesitated. "Mama, what are you gonna do?" She met his eyes, her voice steel. "I'm going to make sure that man never lays a hand on another child again." Olivia Harris had spent years in courtrooms, dismantling unjust systems one case at a time. But this wasn't just another case. This was her son. She wasted no time. Within the hour, she had filed an official complaint against Officer Scott Reynolds. She knew the law, knew how the system worked, and more importantly, knew how it failed boys like Tyler. But before she could even gather her legal team, her phone buzzed with another notification. "Justice for Tyler" is trending nationwide. Her breath caught as she opened her social media feed. The video of Reynolds attacking Tyler had gone viral. Millions had seen it, shared it, and were demanding justice. The comments poured in. "That officer needs to be fired now. A 12-year-old child? This is disgusting. How many times do we have to see this happen before something changes?" Outside the Atlanta Police Department, a growing crowd of protesters gathered, holding signs, "No justice, no peace." Justice for Tyler. Protect our children, not your badges. The city was waking up, and it was angry. That evening, Olivia sat in a meeting with District Attorney Marcus Whitfield, an old colleague and one of the few people she trusted. "I've seen the footage," Marcus said, shaking his head. "This isn't just excessive force. This is child endangerment." "Then charge him," Olivia said firmly. Marcus sighed. "You know how this goes, Olivia. The police union is already circling the wagons. They've put Reynolds on paid leave, but they're pushing a narrative." "What narrative?" Olivia demanded. Marcus leaned forward. "They're saying he feared for his safety, that Tyler was acting aggressively, that the crowd was hostile." Olivia slammed her hand on the table. "That's a lie, Marcus. The whole country saw the video." "I know," Marcus exhaled. "But they've used this argument before. And they've won before. Not this time, Olivia said, her voice steel. Marcus studied her, then nodded. All right. We charge him. Assault, child endangerment, civil rights violations. But you need to be ready for what's coming. I've been ready my whole life, she said. Outside her house, reporters were already gathering. Judge Harris, will you be pressing charges? Do you believe Officer Reynolds should be fired? Do you think your role as a judge will influence the case? She stopped at her doorstep, looked straight into the cameras, and spoke with the full weight of a mother and a judge. My son, a 12-year-old child, was choked, thrown against a tree, and humiliated by a man who was supposed to protect him. There will be justice, I promise you that. And with that, she walked inside. The battle had begun. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, community leaders, activists, and families who had been victims of police violence all filled the seats, waiting for the trial of Officer Scott Reynolds to begin. The air was heavy with tension, the kind that only came when justice was on the line. At the front of the courtroom, Judge Olivia Harris sat with her son, Tyler, by her side. She wasn't here as a judge today. She was here as a mother. On the other side, Scott Reynolds sat stiffly, his lawyer whispering in his ear. He was no longer the man who had thrown a child against a tree. Today, he looked small, uncomfortable under the weight of the world watching. Then, the trial began. District Attorney Marcus Whitfield stood first. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, pausing to let his words settle. What we are here to determine is not just whether Officer Reynolds committed an act of violence, but whether a system that protects officers like him will continue to let it happen. He clicked a remote, and the video played on the screen. The courtroom fell silent as the footage rolled. Tyler, just a child, being grabbed, choked, and thrown against a tree. His small voice gasping up, "I didn't do anything." Gasps echoed throughout the room. A woman in the front row wiped away tears. "This," Marcus continued, "is not law enforcement. This is not protection. This is brutality. And it is criminal." The jury stayed still, their faces grim. Then, the witnesses were called. Miles Carter, the man who had recorded the video, took the stand first. "I knew what I saw was wrong," he said, voice steady. "That kid wasn't doing anything but playing at the park." The defense lawyer smirked. "You say you recorded this because you believed Officer Reynolds was abusing his power," the lawyer said, crossing his arms. "But isn't it true that you only started recording after the confrontation had already begun?" Miles narrowed his eyes. "I started recording when I heard a grown man yelling at a child," he shot back. "Maybe if more people did that, we wouldn't be here today." The lawyer pressed his lips together, but said nothing. Then, it was Tyler's turn. Tyler swallowed hard as he took the stand. His mother gave his hand a reassuring squeeze before he walked up. The courtroom felt massive from where he sat. His feet barely touched the ground. "Tyler," Marcus said gently, "can you tell us what happened that day?" Tyler cleared his throat. "I was just playing. I was skating, and my board rolled too close to this lady. I told her I was sorry, but then the cop came." His voice shook. "He asked me where I lived, if I had ID. I told him I didn't. I mean, I'm 12. Then he grabbed me and threw me against the tree." A few people in the jury shifted uncomfortably. "What did he say to you?" Marcus asked. Tyler hesitated, then whispered. "He said, 'You all think you can do whatever you want, don't you?'" The room went still. Olivia gripped the edge of her seat, fury burning beneath her calm exterior. Marcus nodded solemnly. "Thank you, Tyler. You were very brave." Tyler stepped down. His mother wrapped an arm around him as he returned to his seat. Reynolds' lawyer stood. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's be reasonable," he said, pacing the room. This officer was doing his job. He saw a child acting erratically, running near pedestrians, and he took action to prevent a bigger issue. He turned to the jury. Do we want to punish officers for doing their jobs? Do we want to create an environment where they have to hesitate before acting? He paused for effect. Officer Reynolds feared for his safety. Olivia let out a sharp breath, anger bubbling beneath the surface. Then Marcus stood up again, holding a document in his hands. "This," he said, holding it high, "is an internal police report from 5 months ago." He walked toward the jury. This report states that Officer Reynolds had multiple complaints against him for excessive force against Black and Latino boys. This report recommended that he be reassigned. The jury stiffened. But nothing happened. Marcus continued. Instead, he was allowed to remain on the streets until the day he grabbed a child, and slammed him against a tree. The courtroom erupted in whispers. The defense lawyer looked shaken. As the trial progressed, it became clear. The defense was losing. The jury saw the video. They heard Tyler's testimony. And now, they knew about Reynolds' history. As the judge dismissed the court for the day, Reynolds finally spoke to his lawyer. His voice was low, almost panicked. "Do you think they'll convict me?" The lawyer hesitated. "Yeah," he admitted. Across the room, Olivia pulled Taylor close, kissing his forehead. Justice wasn't served yet, but it was coming. The courtroom was silent as the jury filed back in, their faces unreadable. Every breath in the room seemed to be held in suspense. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" the judge asked. The jury forewoman, a middle-aged woman, with a serious expression, stood and cleared her throat. "We have, Your Honor." Tyler squeezed his mother's hand. Olivia felt his fingers tremble, but she held him steady. The forewoman unfolded a slip of paper and began to read. "On the charge of second-degree assault, we find the defendant guilty." Gasps filled the courtroom. "On the charge of child endangerment, we find the defendant guilty." A murmur rippled through the audience. "On the charge of civil rights violations, we find the defendant guilty." A wave of emotion crashed through Olivia. Relief, justice, pain. She let out a slow breath, squeezing Tyler's hand tighter. Reynolds sat stiffly, his jaw clenched. His lawyer whispered something, but he didn't react. He had lost. The judge nodded. "Officer Scott Reynolds, this court finds you guilty on all counts. Sentencing will be held next month." As the courtroom erupted into whispers, Olivia turned to Tyler. "We did it, baby." Tyler's voice was quiet, uncertain. "Does this mean it's over?" She brushed his hair back. "Not yet, but it's a step in the right direction." As they walked outside, a crowd of supporters cheered, holding signs that read, "Number Justice for Tyler." For the first time in weeks, Tyler smiled. The fight wasn't over. But today, justice had won. This story is not just about one boy or one bad cop. It's about a system that allows injustice to happen and the power of standing up for what's right. One of the biggest lessons we take from this is that silence allows injustice to continue. If bystanders hadn't recorded the incident, Officer Reynolds might have walked away without consequences. This highlights the importance of holding those in power accountable. Another takeaway is the role of resilience and advocacy. Tyler, though a child, had a mother who fought for him, who refused to let him be another statistic. In real life, we need people like Olivia Harris, leaders, parents, and community members willing to fight against wrongdoing. For us, the lesson is clear. Be aware. Injustice often happens in everyday situations. Stay informed. Speak up. Whether it's recording an incident, signing a petition, or supporting victims, small actions create big change. Push for systemic reform. Better police training, accountability measures, and policy changes help prevent future cases like Tyler's. Justice is not just a courtroom battle. It's a daily responsibility. What will you do when you witness injustice? Tyler's story is not just about one child facing injustice, but a wake-up call about our responsibility to stand up for what is right. It reminds us that staying silent can mean accepting injustice, but taking action can create real change. So, if you witnessed an unfair situation, like the one Tyler experienced, what would you do? Comment 1. If you would stand up, record the truth, and fight for justice to protect those who can't protect themselves. Comment 2. If you believe staying silent and avoiding risks is the safest option. Drop your answer 1 or 2 in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more powerful stories like this one. Blast off!